CBS Atlanta News presents Public Affairs on Peach.
They put their lives on the line to serve our country. But what happens when servicemen and women return and get out of the armed forces? Well, today on Public Affairs on Peach, we'll talk about that transition. Welcome back to Public Affairs on Peach. Well, today we are taking a look at how military service members readjust to life back here at home after spending months in the war zone. Every homecoming is an emotional time for the entire family, but what comes after the greetings at the airport can be difficult. It's especially important for every member of the military to have a strong support system when they return home from war, and spouses play a huge part in that adjustment. Captain Lee Escobar is a chaplain in the U.S. Army Reserves. He's on a mission to help America's returning veterans be successful. And again, same to you. Thank you for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Now, it says here, you recommend an overall perspective of evolve, educate, and execute when it comes to a spouse helping to make the transition from military service. What does that mean?
Well, what happens is, first of all, making the transition becomes very difficult for any military member and also for the spouse. So the first thing they have to do is realize that it's time to evolve. Evolve means that things are different, things are changing, and you have to become aware of that. And basically, you don't know what you don't know. Once you make that transition into the civilian world, having the finances, the money, and the security that is gone from not having a job becomes stressful. So you have to be aware that there's things that you just don't know in the world, in the civilian world, and also when it comes to your finances and making money. So then after that, you have to educate yourself on what you don't know. And then once you educate yourself on what you don't know, then it's time to actually execute what you've learned in order to achieve the independence and the security that you want in the civilian world.
Now that's a lot, and from somebody who's coming from fighting and returning home, it seems like a lot to digest. So you have advice about taking it slow and just a little bit at a time?
Yeah, absolutely. What I would suggest is 6 months to a year prior to separating from the military, start reading books, start learning about finances, incorporate the spouse also in that, and make it a joint effort as and goal-oriented in order for both individuals to make the transition smoothly.
And you mentioned both individuals. Talk about how important it is for a spouse to be supportive and actually prepare for when their loved one comes home.
Yeah, absolutely. When the spouse returns, when the spouse comes back, or the military member, I should say, comes back, the spouse needs to be very supportive, because it's not just a change from, I'm going from the military to civilian, it's a total lifestyle change. A lifestyle involving what do I do next? It's a change of losing that, that pride of here I am in uniform, I'm being supported, and now I'm going out of uniform again, and I won't receive the same type of credibility as I did before. So what happens is the spouse really has to be that rock for their spouse, to watch over them, to be there for them, to support them, and realize there's going to be a difficult transition there, and realize there's going to be times of, of where the self-confidence has gone down a little bit. There's going to be times of where the doubt sets in, and that's where the spouse, as a pillar and as a rock, needs to stand up and say, I have your back, I'm there to watch over you.
And I would assume that preparing for that reunion starts weeks, if not months ahead of time. The spouse has to be prepared for all this.
That's correct. Just becoming aware. Evolving in the transition becomes very important, and it'd be great for the spouses to start learning how to support even more, find out what they're going to go through, find out the type of problems that are going to take place, and that way they can work together as a team.
And also talk about the readjustment of roles too, because the spouse has been home all this time doing things by themselves, and now their loved one is coming home, so it's a readjustment of the roles, and both parties have to get used to that as well.
And it just depends on the situation. If they're coming back from a deployment or coming back from any type of mission overseas, then what ends up happening is, yes, the spouse was in charge of a lot of the finances, they were in charge of the family, and when the military member comes back, it's almost like another world. But then if they're just retiring, then it becomes something different because they were in the house together. So it just depends on the situation that they're in, and just becoming aware, and again, evolving, and then educating yourself on what to do. You
touched on it a little bit earlier, but what does a spouse need to know to ensure a lasting and successful transition?
Well, in my book, Rich Soldier, one thing that I really focus on is that each member is going to have to work together. And, it just becomes that support that needs to take place, the understanding, realize that a lot of times that through the frustration and through the pain, there's going to be times where the military member or even the spouse just want to react in a negative way, and just come to the point of understanding, what? Hurt people, and heal people. So just realize when the emotions come out, it's not the individual speaking, but it's the emotion speaking, and just to be sensitive to that, because it is a hard transition.
And you mentioned to develop a plan and what you're going to do, correct?
That is correct. And the plan that they want to develop is, again, one thing I really teach in my book, Rich Soldier, which I really want to bring out to the spouses and to the military members, is that there's certain core values that our military hold. Each service has a bunch of core values. And I personally want to teach our soldiers to become entrepreneurs, to become investors, to own their own businesses and not necessarily have to work for somebody else. Because we all know that the security in the job world is very difficult right now. Even when you have a civilian who has never been in the military, going to college, trying to get a job, I mean, let's look at it. A person who is a veteran, they retire at 39, 40 years old, you know, who's really going to hire them? It's really hard to make that adjustment. And then even our civilian 38, 40-year-old, you know, trying to lose a job and get a job again becomes very difficult. Then you have someone who's 24, 25 years old. 80% of the college students are going right back home right after college and getting their degree. So I want to offer another option to our soldiers, an option that they're not given in the military, which is to become an entrepreneur, own your own businesses. I really believe that our military have these core values that we're taught. You know, we're taught integrity. We're taught, you know, to face fear in its eyes and be courageous, and all that translates into the business world. I truly believe that our military have more capability to make more money and have more skill sets to be entrepreneurs than just to be an employee. I think they go from manning millions of dollars of equipment to being in charge of people's lives just to come back to work at home at McDonald's or to work at a gym or to work in some type of job that was less than what they were doing in the military. That's why their self-esteem goes down. And right now we have one military member committing suicide a day. And if you add the veterans, it's 80 every 80 seconds, according to Time magazine. And I really think part of the problem is the financial transition. If we can elevate them, teach them how to have their own businesses, increase their self-esteem, self-worth, then we'll be able to curb a lot of that.
All right, well, I appreciate you coming in and sharing talking about your book and sharing some goals for military folks who are making that transition back to stateside. Well, up next, before we go, Captain Escobar has a presentation he wants to make to our guests. Captain?
Yes. In the military, we have a tradition of giving out coins. The purpose of the coins are to build morale and also for special achievement. And this week, what I would like to do is I'd like to present this coin to you. Sergeant Gray, for your service, for all that you've done. The purpose is to help you become a rich soldier, to help you have a financial independence. I want to give that to you for all that you've done. Thank you very much for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And also thank you also for all that you have done for our military. I'd like to present one also to you for all that you've done also to help our service members. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Captain
And also
Escobar.
for you.
Oh, I appreciate
for
it.
spending this time with us today. I would like to give one for you also. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank all of our guests today for the show. And we'll see you next week, same time. Have a good evening.